the coldness that settled in my bones that Christmas Eve. It's been years since that night, but I can never escape the memories. It was a typical Christmas, or so it seemed. My family was gathered in the living room. My parents, my younger brother Jake, and me. The fire crackled, and the smell of pine and cinnamon filled the air. The tree was beautifully decorated, its lights twinkling in the dim light. I should have felt at ease, but something gnawed at me, something I couldn't shake. A feeling of unease that grew stronger as the night wore on. I remember it was just after midnight when my sister Lily screamed. That scream, sharp, piercing, still echoes in my mind. I rushed into the living room, where my parents were already standing by the tree, staring down at something I had never seen before. A small, neatly wrapped gift sat under the tree. I didn't understand how it got there. None of us had put it there. I felt a chill run through me, and my parents looked just as confused, just as uneasy as I was. "Who's it for?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My dad stepped forward, his face pale. "I don't know." Jake, always the curious one, crept forward and shook the box. The faint sound of rustling made my stomach turn. The air in the room grew colder, and the silence was broken by a knock at the door. Dad opened it cautiously, revealing nothing but a small envelope. I'll never forget the look on his face as he read the note aloud. "Enjoy your gift." I felt my blood run cold. The gift, the envelope, everything felt wrong. The police came, but they couldn't find anything. No fingerprints, no clues, just an empty, unsettling house. It wasn't until later that we realized the true horror of that night. When Jake opened the box, there was a doll inside. Porcelain doll. Its smile was too wide, its eyes too lifelike, and the note around its neck. "Watch your children closely. They will be next." That was the beginning of the end for us. The fear never left. The police never found anyone, and we moved away a year later, but the memories still haunt me. Every Christmas, I still check under the tree. I still remember the smell of the old factory, the dust, the rust, the dampness in the air. It's been years since that night, but every Christmas, the memories flood back. The music playing faintly in the background, the warmth of the alcohol running through my veins, the laughter that, looking back, didn't feel as genuine as it should have. It was supposed to be a fun Christmas party, a one-off, out-of-the-box idea. No one thought anything strange about it at first. I should have known better, though. The factory had been abandoned for years, its windows shattered, its floors cracked with time. But they decorated it with cheap, flickering Christmas lights, and it looked festive in an eerie way. It seemed harmless, right? I walked inside, greeted by the usual chaos. My co-workers, half-drunk already, mingled near the small bar that had been set up, their voices rising in excitement. No one really cared that we were in an old industrial building, surrounded by broken-down machines. The place felt like a leftover from some forgotten era, but we were young, excited for a break from work. As the night went on, the mood grew strange. At first, it was the odd clinking of glass against glass and bursts of laughter that felt a little too forced. Then it was the silence. It crept in like a thick fog, suffocating the conversations, making it harder to ignore the growing discomfort in my chest. At some point, Paul, one of the more excitable guys from our department, disappeared. He had this weird energy about him, always the center of attention. But that night, he said he'd found something we all had to see. Of course, no one took him seriously at first. We all assumed it was just another of his drunk antics. He didn't come back for a while, and curiosity finally got the best of me. I told a few others, Jess, the shy girl from HR, and Mike, who always hung around Paul like a shadow, to come with me. We walked toward the back of the factory, past the empty assembly lines and darkened corners, until we reached the storage room. It was colder back here, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer. We hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to go inside. The dim lights flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls, and the silence was only broken by the distant hum of an old ventilation system. We pushed open the creaky door, and that's when I saw him. Paul was sitting on the floor, his back against the wall, staring into space. He looked drained, his skin pale, his eyes wide and filled with terror. His hands were trembling. "Paul?" I asked, my voice breaking the heavy silence. "What's going on?" He didn't speak at first, but then he whispered, "It's not a party. It never was." I looked around, trying to make sense of his words, but all I saw was the empty room. There were old boxes, crates scattered about, and stacks of paper, but something about the place felt wrong. Paul slowly pointed to the far corner of the room. "In there," he muttered. I followed his gaze, squinting into the darkness. At first, I thought it was just more clutter, but then I noticed it. A table covered with faded photographs. I couldn't make out what was on them at first, but as I got closer, my stomach dropped. These weren't just any pictures. They were old factory workers, their faces all worn with time. But what was truly unsettling were the names written on the backs. Names of people who had vanished over the years, people I knew had worked at this factory before it closed. I stepped forward, feeling an oppressive weight in the room, but then I froze. There was a note on the table. Its edges were frayed, and the handwriting was frantic. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I unfolded the paper. "Someone is watching you. Someone you know." My pulse quickened as I looked at the others. Jess had gone pale. Mike was backing away slowly, his hand resting on the doorframe. There was no sound now, just the weight of those words hanging in the air. "Guys, we need to leave. Now," I said, my voice shaking. But before we could move, the power suddenly went out, plunging the room into pitch-black darkness. I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate steps, coming closer. My heart raced as I tried to make out where they were coming from. They were too fast, too heavy, and then that laugh. It wasn't just any laugh. It was a low, almost guttural chuckle, like someone had been waiting for us to find them. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. All I could do was feel the cold breath of someone, on the back of my neck. In a blind panic, we ran. We didn't stop running until we were outside, gasping for air, the chill of the winter night biting at our skin. The cold air burned, but it felt like a relief compared to the suffocating fear we had just left behind. We didn't speak as we left, and none of us could look at each other the same way. The police came, of course, but they found nothing. They searched the entire factory, but there was no one there. No sign of anything amiss. No one had seen or heard anything unusual, and the factory was empty, just like it always had been. But none of us could forget what we'd seen. The years have passed, but that factory is still there, rotting away, and every year, I receive a Christmas card in the mail. Simple, just one line. "Merry Christmas." I've never opened it, but I know who it's from. I don't know why I never went looking for Danny. I should have. I should have checked on him hours ago. But somehow, I kept convincing myself that he was fine, that he was just caught up in the excitement of the party, that he would come home soon. That's how it always started. Wasn't it? Denial. It was Christmas Eve, well past midnight. The streets were silent, except for the soft crunch of snow beneath my boots as I paced by the window, waiting for Danny to come home. The world outside was covered in a thick blanket of snow, the glow of Christmas lights in the distance offering the only warmth to an otherwise desolate town. But the silence felt wrong, unnatural. There was no wind, no rustling of branches, just quiet, the kind of quiet that made you feel like something was hiding in the shadows. I tried calling him again, but there was no answer. Panic clawed at my chest, but I pushed it down. I was being irrational. I grabbed my coat and rushed out the door, hoping to find him on the street, maybe walking home from the party. When I reached the corner of our street, I saw him, a figure standing in the shadows by our porch. At first, I thought it was Danny, but as I got closer, my heart dropped into my stomach. The figure wasn't him. The person was too tall, too wide. Their shoulders hunched under the weight of a tattered red suit, and their face was obscured by a thick, bushy white beard. All I could see were their eyes, cold, empty, and unblinking. I hesitated, a chill running down my spine. "Who are you?" I called out. The man didn't answer. He just stood there, staring at me. "Is Danny with you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The man nodded slowly, his movements deliberate, as though he'd been waiting for this moment for far too long. "He's waiting in the car," he said in a low, gravelly voice. I blinked, confused. "What car? Where's Danny?" The man stepped closer, his face still hidden behind the thick beard. "He's waiting," he repeated. "He'll be fine." Something inside me snapped. "What have you done to him?" I yelled, taking a step back, but the man didn't flinch. He just smiled. A twisted, crooked smile that didn't match his eyes. I slammed the door shut, my heart pounding in my chest. My hands shook as I dialed the police, but when they arrived, the man was gone, and so was Danny. They searched the neighborhood, but there was no trace of either of them. No sign of the man, no sign of a car, nothing. The next few days were a blur of interviews, questions, and worry, but no one could answer why Danny had vanished. The police didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to think. Was he kidnapped? Did the man in the Santa suit have something to do with it? Weeks later, I found a small card in my mailbox. It was simple, with nothing but a few words written in faded red ink. Ho, ho, ho. I've never stopped looking over my shoulder since that night. Every Christmas, I wait for something, anything, that will explain what happened to Danny. But I know deep down that Santa, or whoever he was, is still out there watching. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the content. As a college student, I work hard to create these videos, and I edit everything on my mobile phone. I'm hoping to upgrade to a laptop to improve the quality of my videos, but I don't want to ask for money directly. This Christmas, if you enjoy what I do, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean the world to me. Your support helps me so much as I continue working toward my goals. Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. May this festive season bring you joy and warmth. Thanks again for your support, and stay tuned for more.